After 8 years of this Prime Minister, everything feels broken. Yep. After 8 years, we have half of Canadians cutting back on groceries and 20% of them skipping meals because the Prime Minister's carbon tax, with the help of the NDP, has made food prices unaffordable. After 8 years, Bloomberg says we have the 5th worst housing bubble on planet Earth as a nation, and Toronto, according to UBS, is the most overpriced housing market in the world. After 8 years of this Prime Minister, rent for the average apartment has gone from $1,000 to $2,000, and the average mortgage payment from $1,500 to well over $3,000. People's finances feel broken after 8 years. And also, what is broken? Our laws. Literally broken. Our violent crime laws have been broken 32% more than when this Prime Minister took office 8 years ago. There are major parts of our cities that have turned into crime zones after 8 years of this Prime Minister. We see this not just in the staggering anecdotes of people being hit in the face with ice picks on transit stations or doused in flammable liquids and lit aflame. We see it in the random attacks on strangers on the streets of Vancouver and Toronto. We see it in the half-dozen police officers murdered, in some cases by multiple offenders who were out on early bail, because after 8 years of this Prime Minister, bail has become easier and more automatic to get for the violent offenders who do the most crime. And when we speak up against this broken bail system that the Liberals have created, they respond with their typical divide and distract. They attempt to convince people to be afraid of the solution rather than solving the problem. Now, they claim that Conservatives want to bring in some kind of Dickensian system of criminal justice, which is actually false. Our approach has not only been tough on the repeat violent offenders, it has been smart, and now we can all say, having looked at the data, it has been proven right. Now let's look at the data. Actually, before we look at the data, I want to talk about the general principle that guides our approach to criminal justice. Contrary to the false rhetoric of the Liberals and NDP, and by the dishonest reporting from the CBC and other Liberal outlets, our approach narrowly targets the most violent, dangerous offenders. We agree that long criminal sentences are not helpful for a young person who makes a small mistake and wants to start over and rebuild their lives. We believe that a young person making such a mistake should get rehabilitation and support. And also, contrary to the false and dishonest reporting of the Liberal media, we do not believe that someone who is suffering from a drug addiction should go to prison. We believe they should go to treatment, something that is not happening today. And we believe that those who prey upon those victims, including who prey on our drug addicts, should pay the real penalties and not the addicts themselves. We finally believe that the government should, instead of flooding our communities with dangerous and lethal drugs, should put our resources into recovery and treatment, as the Alberta government has done with great success in bringing down the overdose deaths that have afflicted people right across this country. And we see the alternative in British Columbia, where there has been a 300% increase in drug overdose deaths since this Prime Minister took office 8 years ago. His and the NDP approach in that province has been a disaster. It has created a living hell in certain communities throughout Vancouver, where addicts lie face down on the pavement, live permanently in encampments, and 6 people die every single day from overdoses. That is the empirical evidence about the approach that this government has taken. It is time to rescue our brothers and sisters, our friends and neighbors, to help them, yes, with the medications that reduce the symptoms of withdrawal, yes, with the medications that reverse overdoses, but also with recovery and treatment, and not by flooding our communities with drugs. Yes. That has not worked, and that is not the way to go. And now on to violent offenses. There are two different approaches. Conservatives believe that the most violent repeat offenders should serve longer sentences. This is the approach that we took when we were in government that led to both a reduction in crime and, interestingly, a reduction in incarceration numbers. Let's look at the data on the first point. When the Conservative government left office, there were 382,000 violent crimes. Obviously too many. That was in the year of 2015. But that has risen now, after 8 years of this Prime Minister, to over 500,000 violent crimes, an increase of 32%. Now, you might assume, listening to the rhetoric from the far-left media, that this is because everyone went to jail. Well, that's false, actually. During the previous Conservative government, the number of people behind bars actually dropped from 238,000 to 201,000, a reduction of roughly 37,000. 37,000 fewer people were behind bars. How is it possible then that you call it tough on crime? Well, the answer is we targeted the worst offenders, the repeat offenders, the frequent flyers, those that come back to commit one crime after another. And we see this phenomenon now reversed as this government has allowed those frequent flyer criminals to go back out on the street again and again. Let me turn your attention to a letter from the BC Union of Mayors, where they highlight the problem that we're trying to address today by fixing the broken Liberal bail system. In the letter, they say that the same 40 offenders had 6,000 negative interactions with police in 1 year. That's 150 interactions per year per offender, on average about one every 2 days. Wow. Across British Columbia, the same 204 offenders had 11,648 interactions with the police. Most of these, by the way, are arrests. So again, these same 204 offenders in all of British Columbia had about 50 interactions with police per year, per person. This is what's happening. The same repeat offenders are committing, in many cases, dozens and dozens of offenses. And then when police arrest them, they are released on bail the same day because of this Prime Minister's catch and release policies. Yes. They then go out and reoffend the same day, and police officers have to arrest them again. Ironically, this doesn't reduce the incarceration rate. What it does is it means the same people are incarcerated, but their incarceration is punctuated by short-term release, during which time they can go out and smash someone's face in, if we can be blunt about it, because that is what is happening with these random attacks. So what we as Conservatives propose is that those offenders who have a track record of multiple reoffenses, but then are charged again, should be kept behind bars to await trial until such time as they are either acquitted or they complete their sentences. Why? Because the evidence has shown that they are a danger to public safety. And that is why we want them behind bars. Not because we hate the offender, but because we love the victims and we want to protect them from future offenders. And as my deputy leader, the member for Thornhill, will say, as I've split my time with her, our purpose in this is to protect public safety, to follow the evidence and the data, and listen to the true experts, that is to say, the police officers, the prison guards, and those who work in rehabilitating and helping those who've been in crime, the real experts who do the real work. Let us listen to them. Let us protect our people. Let us fix what is broken, and let us bring safety and security home to our people. Thank you.